Welcome back to my gallery after a little bit of a break. So, time for a little bit more wandering. Yesterday, on first examination, could be considered quite a frustrating day. My beloved Rita cracked a crown which needed emergency treatment. So, rather than doing some sculpture or just taking life easy in the garden, we found ourselves charging off to Beberibi, a nearby town, for a dental visit. I was tagging along in case my credit card was needed because, well, who knows how much that was going to cost. So off we went, and I suppose I was a little bit grumbling at the whole idea. As it happens, it turned out very well. We have a wonderful dentist, and she solved the problem, and it was frankly cheap at the price. Not at all requiring of my credit card, which I'm a little cautious about using. I think the less you use credit cards, the better. That's my policy, and I'm sticking to it. But it did get me thinking, it had put me in a bit of a frustrated sort of mood. But really, what ingratitude? Because the facts of the matter are, we have a wonderful dentist who is able to see us at very short notice. And she is relatively inexpensive. These are causes for celebration. And the fact of the matter is also that, yes, the dentist is cheap for me, but that is because I have a decent source of income, a flat that I own and rent out. I am a very, very lucky boy. And a little bit of gratitude for that would go a long way, certainly before embarking on the mission to the dentist. And actually, it reminded me of something that I used to tell some of the younger members of the family when they were grumbling, that I'd read this fascinating report that suggested that if you can lay claim to the following: you have an adequate supply of clean water, you eat, follow a good diet, you have enough food to eat of varied and decent quality, you are able to dress and be sheltered in an appropriate fashion for the climate you find yourself living in, and finally, you are literate and numerate, and I suppose one might say functionally literate and numerate. If you satisfy all those conditions, you are in the top 1/4 of the world's population. When I first read this, I found it hard to believe. I haven't done any research, and maybe it's not actually true, but a little bit closer examination, you start thinking, well, actually, it probably is. Most people in the world, quite possibly a majority, struggle for simple things like adequate food or access to drinking water or clean water for bathing. And if they have it, it's certainly not easily accessible. Many people around the world actually live in terms of adequate shelter. Their life is precarious. Even in well-developed Western democracies, huge numbers of people are cold in the winter, for example. And so the list goes on. And yes, we think it's fairly normal that you are literate and numerate. And where I live now, well, the vast majority of Brazilians are literate and numerate. But another interesting article I read suggested that only 8% of the workforce have a level of literacy and numeracy that enables them to perform sort of critical tasks on an administrative level, which is quite shocking, really. But when one thinks about it, very believable. If you're watching this video, well, of course, you are probably like me. You have all these conditions and more well met. And just for those reasons alone, we need to live our lives with a healthy dollop of gratitude, a daily dose, really, a sort of apple a day kind of philosophy. A dose of gratitude a day keeps the blues at bay, or something like that. It certainly is, many thinkers suggest, a keystone activity for being happier. And I've mentioned this a lot, and I mention it because it's a way of kind of pulling myself back, centering myself. I need to be grateful. There's absolutely no reason, just because I have a slightly inconvenient trip with my wife to the dentist, for feeling frustrated. Heaven forbid. It's always great to see my dentist. She is a lovely lady. Absolutely lovely. So, no cause for misery. And the fact that I miss a session of sculpture is really not a big problem. And the problem was solved on the dental front. And my wife was very happy. I think she was a little bit nervous. She's not an enormous fan of dentists, as many of us are. We view the trip with a little bit of trepidation. So being able to solve that problem easily and frankly cheaply is a cause for celebration. It wasn't painful. There is a path forward. Now, you might be watching this video and getting a little irritated because, you can see a whole host of reasons for the absolute opposite of gratitude. Let's just say frustration in your own life. And I can see that. And this sort of absurd level of cheerfulness, no, everything is not perfect in our lives. And yes, we need to strive to solve those sorts of problems. But starting from the point of thinking, on balance, I have a very, very good life, is a great place to start. And if you're watching this and you have a genuinely heavy load to carry at the moment, and you may well, you're looking after an infirm elderly parent, someone in your family is struggling with a critical and weighty issue of health, and I don't need to go into the specifics. Well, of course, you have my sympathies, and nothing makes those easier. However, the fact that you are dealing with these, and on reflection, you probably have abilities and resources to cope, or at least tackle in a constructive sort of way the pitfalls that life has thrown in front of you, again, puts you in a very, in a very small percentage. the fact that we have literary and numeracy levels that enable us to solve problems makes us rare birds indeed. And I'm on a happy trend with birds, having had a visit from a family of woodpeckers recently. Very nice. Reason to be grateful. And once I'm feeling grateful, a reason to approach my own particular problems with equanimity, with good cheer. And that's a good place to be. So that's what I've been wondering about. Reasons to be cheerful. And as so often, you say something like that, and in itself, it spurs on another reason to be cheerful. I can always listen to a little bit of Ian Jury and the Blockheads, and that cheers me up or makes me laugh. So there we are. Reasons to be cheerful, part 3, or 303 in my case. So I trust you do have plenty of reasons to be cheerful, and until next week from a sunny Brazil, ciao.